The talks surrounding Shedeur Sanders continue to swirl, and it looks like the New York Football Jets may be trying to throw their hat into the Shedeur Sanders market. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated as always. Let's get right into things. So there's been much talk about Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, there are a bunch of people in the Cleveland media that...
The New York Jets just made a move that should terrify the Cleveland Browns. Not on the field, in the front office. Because while Cleveland's own media spent the last 2 weeks manufacturing trade rumors out of thin air, one report just turned that fiction into something real, and it's coming from a division rival's backyard. Here's what actually happened. Gino Smith of Touchdown Wire dropped a report linking Shedeur Sanders to the New York Jets, not as a hypothetical, as a real possibility tied to a real problem. The Jets' presumed starter, Justin Fields' replacement plan, Gino Smith, is currently under investigation after a battery accusation from his ex-partner. Behind him on the depth chart, Bailey Zappi, Brady Cook, Adonai Mitchell insurance-level names that don't move the needle for anybody. If Gino Smith's situation escalates, the Jets don't have a plan B.
This is courtesy of ClevelandBrownsCommunity.com. It says Shedeur Sanders linked to Jets in a surprise move as ESPN analyst makes a bold claim. Here it says Tony Rizzo reported that the Browns don't think he's the guy fueling the trade chatter. Now Gino Smith of Touchdown Wire has added another dimension by linking Shedeur Sanders to the Jets. He was quoted as saying, "The Jets could be desperate in the near future," wrote Smith on June 29th. Gino Smith has been the presumed starter. The other three quarterbacks on the roster.
They have a void. And Shedeur Sanders, according to this report, is exactly the kind of stabilizing arm a desperate franchise starts making calls about. By the end of this, you'll understand why this rumor hits different than every other Shedeur trade story this offseason. Because for the first time, there's an actual reason behind it. Now here's the part that should make Cleveland fans uncomfortable. This isn't coming from nowhere. Tony Rizzo, the same Cleveland radio voice who ignited the original trade chatter, is on record saying the Browns don't think he's the guy. No named source, no front office confirmation, just a feeling he's decided to repeat with confidence. And yet that feeling is now being stitched together with a legitimate quarterback need in New York to build a narrative that Shedeur Sanders could be gone before training camp even finishes. Imagine being a second-year quarterback who spent the entire offseason hearing his coaches praise his development, only to have a rival team's beat writer floating your name as another franchise's contingency plan. That's the reality Shedeur is living in right now. And the worst part, none of the actual reporting from inside the building supports it. Because here's what's actually on record. Mary Kay Cabot reported that nothing has changed in the Browns' quarterback competition since minicamp. Head coach Kevin Stefanski still hasn't set a depth chart. Teams might be asking about Sanders when they call about other players. That's normal roster due diligence. But Cleveland isn't actively shopping him, and they aren't soliciting offers. That's not speculation.
Rizzo, I think it's just guys hating. These just guys hating and don't want to see him play there. And G. Bush addressed it. Let's take a listen.
So I keep going back. Well, hey, listen, let me just tell y'all, when somebody say 5th round pick, just go ahead and say they don't watch games or film. Just say they didn't watch nothing. Here we go. Continue on.
To lose the job, it would be interesting to see how he handles that. And if the Browns feel like maybe there's some tension there, maybe they do facilitate a trade.
Maybe there's some tension.
That's sourced reporting. Everything else is noise dressed up as insight. I'm not here to just referee a radio beef or tell you who's lying. I've gone through what the coaching staff has actually said on record, what his teammates are saying behind the scenes, and what a legitimate quarterback-needy team like the Jets would actually be looking for. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down why this Jets rumor is more believable than the earlier trade chatter, but also why it probably doesn't happen. And I'm saving the most uncomfortable part of this story for the end, because it involves exactly who benefits from keeping Shedeur's name in trade rumors all summer. Let's start with the official record, because this is where most of the reporting on this story falls apart. Todd Monken has said publicly that he likes what Shedeur has done in camp. Andrew Berry called him a naturally accurate passer. His quarterback coach said the improvement from OTAs to minicamp was night and day. That's not fan hype. That's the actual football staff, on the record, describing progress. Now compare that to what's driving the trade chatter: an unnamed insider, a radio host repeating a feeling, and a rival team's beat writer connecting dots because Gino Smith's situation is genuinely unstable. One of those things is reporting, the other is speculation wearing a reporter's badge.
Well, I don't really quite understand it because, from everything that we keep talking about, Todd Monken has been on record saying that he likes what Shedeur Sanders has done at camp. Andrew Berry's been on record saying that he likes his progression. He even actually went ahead and said he's a naturally a passer when it comes to his accuracy. He's naturally accurate passer. His quarterback coach has said, hey, man, listen, he's come miles and it's day and night. People talked about the gap that closed between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders from the first OTA.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. Think about the actual football logic. Why would a coaching staff spend a full offseason building competition, closing the gap between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, gushing about his accuracy and progression, and then trade him away before he ever takes a real training camp rep and pads? That's the equivalent of studying all semester for a final exam and getting told you don't get to take the test. It doesn't add up. Most analysts won't say this part out loud, but I will. When people say, maybe there's tension with zero evidence of any actual tension, that's not analysis. That's a narrative in search of a fact to attach itself to. Here's the stat nobody's showing you. Every teammate who's spoken publicly about Shedeur this offseason has said the same thing. Tyson Campbell has praised him. The young receivers love throwing with him. Not one player has come out and called him a distraction. Compare that to how real locker room fractures usually leak, through anonymous quotes, through visible tension in practice reports, through beat writers hearing it from multiple sources. None of that exists here. What exists is comment section noise being mistaken for organizational reality. I need you to really think about this for a second. The Jets rumor is different from the Browns' manufactured trade chatter because it's rooted in an actual need. Gino Smith's off-field situation creating real uncertainty at the position. But needing a quarterback and the Cleveland being willing to move one are two completely separate conversations. The Browns didn't just draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round and walk away from him. They invested a full offseason of coaching, reps, and public praise into his development. Trading him now, right as the payoff of that investment is starting to show, would be one of the strangest asset management decisions in recent NFL memory.
When you turn that math test in, show your work. Where is it at? I want you to count how many times the work has been shown. I gave you 6 or 7 works cited pages, MLA format, APA format, Chicago manuscript format. I cited my sources. I'm confused why everybody after me don't have none.
I don't think anyone is saying trade him now. Because first of all, I don't think there's any market for him. I think it's...
But that's only one side of the story. Here's what actually shocked me digging into this further. The loudest trade rumors keep tracing back to the same small circle of Cleveland media voices who've been skeptical of Shedeur since draft weekend. It's not league insiders. It's not a national NFL network report. It's local radio personalities repeating each other's speculation until it starts sounding like consensus. That's a media ecosystem talking to itself, not a front office signaling intent. If this goes wrong for the Browns, and I mean if they actually let outside noise pressure them into moving a developing quarterback that both his coordinator and GM have publicly praised, it won't just be a bad roster decision, it'll be a franchise-defining mistake they'll be answering for over the next decade. Meanwhile, if the Jets are desperate enough by August, watch how fast a no-market story turns into a real trade call. That's how this league works. Value shifts overnight when a starting job opens up. So, here's the verdict. The Jets rumor is real in the sense that Joe Smith is a credible reporter and the Jets quarterback need is legitimate. But the idea that Cleveland is ready to move on from Shedeur right now, based on the actual reporting from people inside the building, doesn't hold up. The Browns didn't create this rumor, their own media did, and now a division rival is being used to make it sound credible. What happens next depends entirely on training camp. If Deshaun Watson wins the job outright and Shedeur looks like a clear backup, this conversation gets real fast, and the Jets could be first in line. But if the competition stays as close as it's been all offseason, this entire rumor cycle quietly disappears the same way it started, with no source, no confirmation, and no accountability from the people who pushed it. Because what's coming next in this quarterback battle? Nobody's ready for how fast this story could flip again. If you want NFL breakdowns that separate real reporting from manufactured noise, subscribe, because this competition is just getting started. And drop a comment. Do you think the Jets actually make a real call for Shedeur Sanders? Or is this just more noise? Timestamp your prediction, because I'm going back to check who called it right.